Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Claims Corner. Actually, this is episode number 9, and it is what, Murphy?
The season finale.
It is our season
finale. Season 4, yeah.
It's kind of sad.
It is.
But it's kind of exciting.
It is.
And I think it's more exciting because what we kind of have in store for next year.
Right.
There's all kinds of little ideas and great ideas that we have for next year. So we will be moving into next year. So we will have a 2024 Claims Corner season. So,
yeah, that's exciting. I know, like I said, we've kicked around a lot of ideas, even talking before this broadcast about things we want to do next year. So all that kind of goes into the work starting tomorrow. Start working on it.
So anyway, back to the broadcast here. So I'm Craig Fowler. If you're not familiar with who I am, I'm Craig Fowler. And with me today is
Murphy Buggs in the training department here at CNC.
And David James. Normally he was joining us, but he's actually on assignment. He's somewhere probably in South Beach, Miami right now on the beach getting a suntan.
Sure.
So actually he's down with a client of ours, and he's doing some train the trainer, getting familiar with what he needs to bring back to us so that we can present it to you all and get that training off to you all for the future, for
That's
the
right.
upcoming storm season. So
that's right.
You know, one thing we'll say with him out there doing that and not being here, but being able to produce some of these broadcasts, these podcasts, and this stuff, you know, this is our final episode, which is, like I said, kind of sad. But we'll say this. After this episode's done, you can actually go on our YouTube channel. I struggle with that
There
word.
you go. YouTube channel. You got it.
YouTube channel, and look at all our old broadcasts. Look at this episode. Look at past seasons.
Yep.
So there's always good information out there for that. But we will be back in 2024. So, you know, and the one thing, but we were talking today, or not really today, but about this episode today. We were sitting there talking, and we're putting all this together, and we're trying to figure out, okay, who, you know, it's episode 9. We got to end it with a bang. You know, we got to end it with a cliffhanger.
That's
who
right.
is going to, you know, get in this position? Who we're going to invite to be a guest speaker, and who's going to get in here and speak? And the more we kind of talked about this topic, it was determined to say, you know, we probably don't need anybody as a guest speaker because of what we see with the training and opportunities and everything else that's happening after this episode. Basically, we're looking at and going, okay, we really need to focus on what is new and what does it concern you with both the flood side understanding.
Yeah, property side, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's new stuff, new legislature that's come out, new programs that may have been around for a while, but are really starting to evolve into even more, you know, items that we can use. So yeah, I would say that there's a lot of it, and I know that's what we want to go over today.
Yeah.
So,
and the same thing on flood. There's things that we're going to talk about on flood that were important, but as we're throwing all this together, it's like, yeah, this is something that's really important. It was before this popped up on the radar, and I was just like, oh, great, here we go. Seasons has started.
yeah, stole the show.
And with that, I mean, with this popping up on the radar and looking at this and the model runs and everything on this, we're like, okay, are we really going to have an early season storm? You know, we start looking at preparation and things like that. And I said, okay, we need to have a guest speaker. We need to have a special guest speaker to come in and actually have a talk about what this thing is, and is it something we need to be concerned about right now?
Right.
So with that, I'm going to turn it over. We've brought in our very own. You just were with him, weren't you?
I sure was.
How was he?
He was fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't get to experience that. So.
Who better to introduce this?
Than you.
No.
I thought you were going to introduce him.
No, Hurricane Hal? No, he's the one that needs to introduce it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, Hal, we want. First of all, Hal, I don't know if you've seen this yet. I'm sure you have because you're doing all this data and collection and all those wonderful, crazy things that way over my pay scale, way over my level, way over my knowledge of the seasons. I just see stuff like this and immediately go, oh, gosh, is it already that time? And what are we dealing with here? Is this something to be concerned about?
Yeah, Craig Murphy, thank you so much for having me on Claims Corner today. Really excited. I love how you bring in so many diverse presenters and broadcasters from different perspectives. But yes, hurricane season is here. So we talk about it a lot, but when you see those first model runs of a potential storm on the horizon, all of a sudden it hits home. Like, we are in hurricane season. There could be an impact in June. Will this storm that you're talking about, will it impact the Gulf Coast? Well, I'm going to share my screen here and talk a little bit about what we're seeing and what could potentially happen. So as the guys were talking about, we were just up at the National Flood Conference in Washington, D.C. this week. A lot of great information up there. I'm sharing my screen here, and I'm going to share this brief presentation just talking about a potential tropical system in the Gulf. So you may have seen this. Hang on, I'm going to change my presentation view. So this is the GFS model, the American model, and it's showing potentially we could see a tropical system in the northern Gulf. The dates up here, this is run actually this morning. This is looking at a model run showing what potentially could happen on Wednesday, June 21st. So when you look at these runs, though, I mean, this shows the pressure in the middle. This would be 972 millibars. This probably would be like a Cat 2 hurricane. They show it here centered south of really Gulf shores, kind of off the coast of Alabama and the Florida Peninsula. But when you look at these model runs, always look at the number right here. It says forecast hour 312. Take 312 and divide it by 24, and that's 312 hours into the future, which is 13 days from now. So in model longevity, 13 days is an eternity. So usually a lot will change when you get beyond 7 days. These have very low accuracy. And we know primarily we look at the GFS or the American model, and we look at the European model. And, getting out more than a week, usually they're not aligning. I would not put too much stock that we'll actually see this happening 13 days from now, but it is a good reminder we're in hurricane season, and we could definitely see some things forming. What I do I always take a look at the National Hurricane Center. They've now extended the tropical weather outlook. It used to be a 5-day outlook. Now they're doing a 7-day outlook. So they'll highlight on the map areas of potential concern within the next 7 days. That's really where we start to take notice and start to be concerned. Anything getting out 10, 13, 15 days, it's quite speculative. But again, it's a reminder, it's hurricane season. If you're planning to do adjusting, if you're planning to work professionally in these storms, this is a time to get your ducks in a row. If you live along the Gulf Coast or the Southeast U.S. coast, this is your time also to prepare your home or prepare your property. Again, we're expecting a near normal season this year. I wanted to talk a little bit about what to expect this season and why potentially June is a month of concern. So right now, the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, all running very warm. In fact, the Central and Eastern Caribbean is having record warmth, the warmest we've seen in the satellite era. But the Equatorial Pacific, remember those Pacific waters, when they're cool, it's La Nina, and we get more Atlantic storms. When the Pacific is warm, it's El Nino, and that knocks down the storms. This year we have a warm Atlantic, and we're rapidly moving to a warm Pacific, an El Nino. That's like tug of war. They're pulling against each other. That's why most of the credible scientists are forecasting a near normal season. But this is interesting as we quickly move into El Nino. We're not quite there yet, but by midsummer we'll be there. This is a work that Colorado State University did showing El Nino hurricane years from 1950 to present. So this is interesting, looking at 72 years of El Nino years. Florida actually had 13 hurricane landfalls, including Michael, Ivan, Jean, Francis, Charlie, and Betsy during these El Nino years. This is really interesting to look back at these analog years. These were years with similar conditions. We saw 13 landfalling hurricanes in Florida in those years. What about the Florida Panhandle over through Louisiana? We saw 12 landfalling hurricanes in those years, including Camille, Ivan, Michael, Betsy, Audrey, and Agnes. But this is really interesting. I think this is fascinating. And these are photos I took at the National Tropical Weather Conference, live conference in South Padre Island. During El Nino years, Texas has been remarkably quiet. Only one landfalling hurricane. But look at which hurricane it was. It was Category 4 Hurricane Audrey on the Texas-Louisiana border. The reason this is important, Texas tends to not have a lot of activity during El Nino years, but the one they had was the only major hurricane, Category 3 or above, that ever made landfall along the Gulf Coast in the month of June. So this was interesting. Again, an analog year, we saw a major hurricane landfall in 1957 on the Texas-Louisiana border in the month of June. The Gulf is very warm right now, and El Nino is not quite here. So at the conference we were talking, we can't be blindsided by June. we would not be surprised to see something big happen in the Gulf potentially in the month of June. So these models are it's good that we're looking at them and keep an eye on them, but always look at that out, how many forecast hours. When it gets out past 300 hours, it's very speculative. But when you see a map like this, though, it looks pretty authoritative. It looks like they know what they're talking about. Again, we'll expect that to shift around quite a bit, but go to those models and look at them once or twice a day. My last slide here, these are the probabilities of a hurricane within 50 miles and a major hurricane within 50 miles of all these different coastlines. And these are the statistic numbers and the forecast for this year. The long-term average is in parentheses. This year's forecast is not in parentheses. So just going down the list there on the left, Florida has a 58% chance of a hurricane within 50 miles of the coast. That's a little bit higher than the long-term average. Louisiana has 40%, Massachusetts 15%, Mississippi 30%, New York 10%, North Carolina 4%, and Texas 38%. Again, we're rolling the dice. It doesn't guarantee anything, but those are the probabilities, and they're pretty close to the long-term averages. As you can see there, the numbers in parentheses are pretty close to the numbers outside of parentheses. So again, keep an eye on the models, refresh this stuff, but don't freak out when you see these model runs that are more than 10 days in the future, something like that. Definitely keep tuned to the National Hurricane Center. But keep in mind, this is hurricane season, and like we saw in 1957, we saw a major hurricane make landfall in the Gulf in June. So and with El Nino moving in by midsummer, if we saw a lot of activity, it could be weighted more on the early side of the season, potentially. It's just something to keep in mind.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I remember that quote from a certain movie way back in the day. Yeah, it's all about chances. It's all about rolling dice, and it's just what's more likely or less likely. But when I see, a similar year had a Cat 4 hurricane in June, I definitely don't want to see people letting their guard down. And it is hurricane season. The Gulf is plenty warm to support hurricanes now, so we'll have to definitely keep an eye on it.
And like we've seen plenty of times in the past, it takes one storm.
Yep.
That's it. It takes one event.
Yep.
You can go through a couple months, nothing, and everybody thinks is okay, we're safe, and all of a sudden something happens. And that's why we do this now. That's like you're here, giving us this information, telling us what, but also we're here to talk about some of the stuff that's new, that's out there that adjusters need to know, because we're getting those adjusters ready to be able to go out there and help those policyholders, just like you give your forecasts and stuff, giving this information to help better educate the customer that's out there, so they are aware of what's happening out there, and they're not taking off guard by what happens.
That's right. I mean, we want to make informed decisions. You don't want to get blindsided. You don't want to say, wow, I should have been paying more attention to this, especially at the beginning of hurricane season. There's something about seeing the model run, see it showing up on the news. By the time we get to August, September, people have kind of had this noise in the background for a few months. But again, you hate to see people get blindsided in June saying, oh, I know it's hurricane season. I was just flat-footed.
Yep. Got to be prepared.
Yeah.
So. Well, Hal, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know you had a lot going on today, but I appreciate you jumping on and giving us this insight. So I'm a little more relieved because I know there's some things we got to work on and we got to do. So, but would you still take that bet? If what's the 10-1 bet? Would you still take that?
Well, yeah, you know what? I learned after 2021, I learned anything can happen. I mean, the Atlanta Braves won the World Series. Now, Murphy will tell you they're the best team in baseball.
You're daggum right, they did.
So I was like, hey, anything's possible.
So who's going to win Boston Heat series?
Well, the Heat already won that one, but the one now is Denver, Miami.
I meant Denver.
Yeah.
I meant Denver.
As much as I want Miami, I think I got to side with Denver.
Yeah, they look too good.
Too many good players.
And then what about Vegas?
Vegas.
Vegas. Yeah. I'm high.
Vegas. So yeah.
Anyway. All right,
guys,
Hal.
thanks for having me on the broadcast.
Absolutely.
Thanks for all you do with Claims Corner.
See you, Hal.
Thanks, Hal. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so Hal, he came on. He was presenting us with what's going on out there. Like we're talking about this storm that's out there is possibly, this model run. Let me rephrase that. It's not a storm. It's a model run. But like he pointed out, there's always a probability, and so that's what we're doing. We're working on preparing for that next event. We have something here already that's shown. That's a probability. So hopefully it triggers for you all as adjusters. We got to get ready. we've got to start preparing ourselves. We've been doing that for months. We've been putting stuff together. We've been adding it to our CNC Pro system. We got our training calendar, kind of our summer calendar that's coming out.
Yep.
Training. We're working in that direction, and that's, again, like I said, that's how this episode evolved, because we're looking at things saying, all right, we got some new stuff that's come out. We got some new information that's been pushed down from the clients, from FEMA, from other sources, from the property side, from property clients, new legislation that's coming out. Let's get this information out in front of everybody now so that you can say, okay, I need to start really focusing on these things.
Yeah.
And also, we're going to show you near the end of this, we're talking about our classes and stuff like that. You got to join them. You got to get on there. You got to start getting the information and getting the materials and understand and seeing the things that we're doing, the changes that we're making for the betterment of the claims process, the claims cycle, and for the policyholders and for our adjusters to make the process easier. So there's a lot of things that we have going on, but we do this as a team. We support. We can't do it without our adjusters out there. We're here to support. We're here to work, and that's why we're doing this stuff to help. So we see it, we filter it down, we make sure it's being implemented, so that at the end result is a successfully closed, happy customer, policy. Everybody's happy. The whole process happy. But
Yep. No, and I feel like we mentioned that on every episode about the name of the game is being prepared, getting up to date on your training. I mean, that's what we're doing too. That's why we go to these conferences and gain this new knowledge about things that are coming, through the pipeline, so we can disseminate that to our adjusters. Because as Craig said, it's a full team effort. It's not just us. It's not just policyholders or carriers or adjusters. It's everybody collectively being prepared and all really being on the same page.
So let's jump right to it. Let's jump right to what some of the new stuff that's out there. The first one you see up here on the screen here is, what is a GCF? And for those adjusters who have been in the business for a very, very long time, flood adjuster-wise, because I'm going to talk about the flood side, Murphy's going to talk about some property side, so we're going to go back and forth. Yeah. And I'm sure I'm going to input on property side, and he's going to input on flood side. So, it's just a good collaboration here and stuff. But on the first thing, what is a GCF? What is a general and temporary condition flooding? And some of y'all new adjusters out there probably kind of questioning this in a sense, but some of the older adjusters, you're probably like, why are we talking about this? This is nothing new. Well, it is in a sense. And what I mean by that is, there's your damages, there's your no damages, there's your basically no GCF. One of the things that's been filtered down to us, been pushed back down to us, is something that's coming across audits and file reviews and things like that, is the actual explanation of the GCF. There needs to be more information put in the narrative about the GCF. It can't just say like, the property had, let's see here, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. I should have had one written down. Let's see here. The property was damaged from the result of accumulation of rainfall. The property received 3 to 4 inches of water in the garage and 7 inches of water on the exterior. Okay? So what you talked about there, you're identifying a source. The source, heavy rainfall. But what is missing in this? What is missing is some of the key criteria. Was it a general and temporary condition? Was inundation present? That's noted. But was there adjoining properties? Were there 2 or more properties involved? Were there 2 or more acres involved, which is part of the definition as well? And explaining these things and going through this step by step, understanding what it's supposed to actually, the details of what you did as the adjuster to identify that there was a GCF on the property. To identify, so let's just take that same situation again, and it would go something toward there was a heavy accumulation of rainfall in the area that caused the neighbor's property and the street and the insured property to flood. So there were 3 properties that were involved in this flooding, which resulted in a general and temporary condition of flooding that was caused from heavy rainfall that occurred on this day, which is our date of loss. But you see there's a little bit more difference there. There's a little more explanation of what took place. And if you get in the situation when there's no GCF, there's no damage, then really need to, what did you do to document that there was no damage from flood and it was not a result of flood? Or what did you do to document that there was no GCF. Who did you meet with? Which neighbors did you see? Did you do this? Did you scope the neighborhood, seeing if there was debris out? Did you talk to the neighbors? Did you look at weather reports? That information needs to go in that narrative as well. So it's not just the simple, there was general temporary condition of flooding caused by the accumulation of heavy rainfall that caused water 3 to 4 inches, blah, 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 boom. It is a lot more detail that needs to go in that about what you did as adjuster to determine, was there a GCF? If there was, what type of damage did it cause? Did it not cause damage? And if there was no GCF, how did you determine that as well?
Right.
So, and like I said, it's kind of, this is something that, I mean, this is the definition of the peril flood. This is what the NFIP and the standard flood insurance policy is. This is the peril right here. And so it does make sense that we as adjusters just really need to give more details about this particular peril. It's not, I mean, there's no earthquake coverage.
Right.
There's no fire coverage. There's no hail. There's no wind. So it's not like we're trying to navigate the perils.
Right.
It is straightforward flood.
No.
And this is why, or this is why not, it meets the definition.
2 questions on this, just from somebody that's not on the flood side every day. If it's the insurance house in the street, does the street count as a second property?
Yes.
Okay, it does. And the second question is, do all of these criteria have to be met for it to be a GCF?
Yes.
Can you just meet 2 or 3?
No.
Has to be every one of them.
All have to be
Good
met.
deal.
They all have to be met.
Good deal.
And the one that's kind of important is the adjoining properties.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, people would consider, okay, which still can happen. We had a flood here on this property,
Okay.
and the property across the street flooded. Okay, so we have 2 properties that flooded. They're not adjoining properties.
Okay.
Okay, so then we have to do our due diligence to determine, was there still a GCF in the area, even though these are not 2 properties that are adjoining? Was there a GCF in the area that maybe caused sewer backup or another type of backup,
Right.
flooding in that area? And then we have to do our documentation on that as
Right.
well. So,
Okay. Makes sense.
oh, hey, here we go. I knew I had this in there. So, so some of the questions, you're like, what is the source? What is the general and temporary? What is it general and temporary? Was there 2 more acres, 2 more properties? What are the other properties that flooded? How was it confirmed? That's where you got to get into this, the explanation in this. And some of our templates, like we're showing here at the bottom, source and water damage, the general and temporary condition of flooding occurred at the described location. This is a yes or no question. Okay, yes, it did. Did flood water cause damage to your property? Yes. But then from there is where you really have to get in the details about how it actually occurred and how it was confirmed. Simple, right?
Yeah. This comes through in the prelim as well, right?
So in the prelim is a little more different because you're just checking some boxes.
Right.
So you're going in there and checking a few boxes in there. But yeah, but it's a good point you make. That prelim really needs to match what's in your narrative.
Right.
Even though these are box you're checking, it says accumulation of rainfall or snow melt or tidal surge,
And how many inches and
that information when you're writing your narrative should reflect exactly what's on your prelim.
Right.
If not, there's an issue there, and I see this a lot when we're dealing with files. One thing about file writing for flood is on the prelim you'll have your exterior and interior water line.
Right.
On your photos, you'll have a photo of an exterior. You should have to have a photo of an interior and exterior water line.
Right.
And in your caption, you'll say like how many inches.
Right.
Your tape measure should show how many inches. And then in your narrative, you're going to document how many inches in your narrative under the section, this was there a general and temporary condition of flooding. So the point I'm getting at, you have 3 sections now where you're documenting that information.
Yeah, so all the stars have to align there. They all have to match.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And it cannot be where on the prelim you had 3 inches and then on the narrative you had 4 inches. Okay, that's just an inch.
Yeah, no, it still doesn't match.
It still doesn't match.
Yeah.
It is still an error. It is still inconsistency. And if I'm an attorney, Fowler and Fowler attorneys, you pull that file in, immediately go, okay, as simple as this sounds, that is an error.
Right.
That is wrong. Now, is that going to affect coverage? Is that going to affect damages? An
Could.
inch?
Maybe not an inch,
Very,
but
very, very unlikely because an inch.
difference between a quote and an apostrophe, though, could be 6 inches, 6 feet. Yeah, that goes a long way.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Good observation.
Yep.
But yeah, so that stuff goes, and that kind of leads into our narratives here. Now, here we are again. You're like, okay, Craig. I'm sitting here on Claims Corner. I'm spending my lunch on Claims Corner, listening to this, and you're talking about narratives. I know everything about narratives. I know how to write a narrative. Do you really know how to write a narrative? I mean, just going to point it out there. I mean, we see narratives all the time that come across, and our clients come back to and say, "Hey, what does this mean? I don't understand this. This is not explained properly." The real point of this section here is, we need to make sure when you're writing your narrative, we're using policy language, which means what, Murphy?
Yeah, I mean,
it's a trick question.
Well, I mean, so you can back up your own decision.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the reason why we've always used it. Yeah.
You're using policy language. You know what the policy says.
Right.
You know what it means.
Right.
You know what the claims manual says. You know what the claims manual means. You know how to interpret this information. And really just copy and paste this information out. When you're doing a situation, especially when you get down to the denial section, some of our clients require denial section. It's not just if we had a television in the basement, which is not covered, not just saying, oh, there's television not covered because it's in the basement. Why is it not covered? And that's where you want to just copy that language out, paste it right there, and say, this item is not covered due to this restriction here, or this language here. And it's also better understanding this information because I'm dealing with the policyholder. They are not familiar with the flood claim, and I'm going up there and say, hey, this is not covered. Okay?
They want to know why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, Murphy, this TV is not covered. Are you going to you just met me. Are you going to trust me and know, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's a professional flood adjuster. Or if I had the policy here in front of me, I said, here's where it's not covered, Murphy.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Not that I wouldn't trust you. You seem like a trustworthy guy.
Well,
but I would at least want you to prove it to me.
Can I borrow your credit card?
Sure. No.
But we need to make sure our narratives, details, denials have a detailed explanation there.
Right.
Really, and read your narrative. Understand your narrative, what you have written. And does it answer the questions that your estimate and your photos represent?
Right.
It is all three of these parts work together. It's like Murphy said, the stars have to align. These three parts are the biggest parts of an estimate, or biggest part of a packet. The narrative, the estimate, the photos. The stars have to align with those three. If they don't, we got problems. Yep. And use this opportunity for your narrative to explain the things. Explain what you're seeing and why you're seeing it, what you're doing. And like I said, this seems like this so trivial. We've gone over this. I've written 700 flood claims before. I understand that, but this is information that's coming down from the top. Just expect, if you do not start documenting more in your narratives, expect and explaining more in your narratives, expect the files to start getting returned from the clients because they want to see more. They need to see more. This is a directive directly from them. This is part of the what is new out there so that we are just preparing ourselves for what is new. Yeah. What's coming down the pipeline, basically.
Yeah.
Risk rating 2.0. This is, came about right after, it's been out before this, and it's just been a lot of changes and a lot of trying to get this implemented, get this processed, and it never really kind of got implemented until, what was that last storm we dealt with? Ian,
Nicole?
Yeah, Ian.
This was a hot topic this last week at the conference.
Oh, I bet it was. I wish I was there. I wish I didn't miss that. Unfortunately, I had some things I had to take care of here. So you can actually probably talk about this then, can't you?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, with Ian, this came out. This came out right at Ian. Prelim, brand new prelim came out. 2.0 prelim. None of the programs had it. People didn't know how to use it. People didn't identify it. So there was kind of a let things just kind of skirt through because it is so brand new. As long as we had a 2.0 prelim, let things just kind of go. Well, that kind of relaxed approach to this has been lifted. Now it's more, okay, this information has to be right. Are the adjusters in the field using the prelim and identifying these new steps that they have to identify as they're out there scoping these losses? One of them is measuring the first floor heights, the basement heights, making sure you're going out there and properly doing that measurement, and also identifying the foundation. I want to say I think there's 8 foundation types in here, and we're got to make sure we're checking that right box. We're identifying that correctly, and then identifying right there where the first floor height is and understanding what that first floor height represents. We also have the number of floors in the building, excluding the basement and enclosures. We've got to make sure we're identifying that. And in the past, it was like one or two, you just one story. But now if you go out and it's a 3-story, that's a bad one, 5-story condo, that's what our numbers are, okay? If it's a condo unit owner that we have a policy for, and they're in the condo, which floor is that unit owner on?
Right. That's
what goes here as well. So we have to make sure we're documenting that stuff. One of the big ones that even after Ian or during Ian, we got questions that came back and say, well, this is not being addressed clearly. This not is where the lowest machinery and equipment. Where is that located? And what floor number is it located on? We talk about the machinery equipment, water heaters, furnaces.
Does it apply to like appliances too?
No.
Okay.
No. It may. I got to check that back.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But I know water heaters, furnaces. I'm thinking the well pumps, the tanks, little things like that.
Okay.
You have to identify where those are located. Okay. Make sure that's marked. HVAC units, compressors. You have to make sure we're identifying where that's located. So the best thing to do, you take your picture, you identify it. Of course, you're also out there when you come across one of these, you have to get the make, model, and serial number on it. So you're there already, documenting it up. But it needs to go on the risk rating 2.0 prelim, which is pretty much the only prelim that should be being used out there right at all. That all prelims pretty much obsolete now. But that information has to go on there. And then the last thing we talked is the flood proofing, flood openings, what those are, where the vents are located, identifying these. That's one thing that adjusters should be doing, but adjusters tend not to do for some reason. But going in there and identifying where the flood proofs are, where the number of flood openings are, and if the flood proofing's there. So that's some of the things that as the season starts, kind of, as we've seen with this event happening, these are some of the things that we have to make sure on the flood adjuster side, hey, we're ready for this. Okay, we know some of these changes and some of the things that I, as an adjuster, I need to make sure that I'm adding to my process, adding to my daily task when I'm out there in the field in my scope, adding these things, making sure this stuff is working, making sure my equipment is working, making sure everything, I am absolutely 100% ready to go out there and take care of a customer. And that's, the narrative, figuring out, how to maybe set up a template, or not set up a template, but set up a Word doc or an Excel doc that already has the specific language that you think you would use, and being able to just copy and paste that over. Think about outside the box how you can be more efficient in the field, because these are some of the things, the narrative, what is a GCF of all things, and the risk rating 2.0. Those are some of the new things that we see out there that say, okay, let's prepare, but let's prepare right.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Well, so shifting really to the property side, this was another huge topic. You're out? Okay. Craig Fowler's now leaving. So at the National Flood Conference, this was also a huge point of emphasis, even for the flood side. It doesn't just affect the property claims. For instance, there was a class on citizens' property insurance at the conference.
Really?
Where they were talking about how their PIF count, their policies in force count's going way up. Potentially by the end of this year, it'll be around 1.7-ish million.
Yep.
I think it's 1.2 or 1.3 now.
And they want to tie in a flood product.
Yes. They are requiring new policyholders to have flood insurance based off of these guidelines.
Which just means 1.7 million flood policies.
That's exactly right. So that was, again, huge topic, and that's just a little bit from the flood side. But on the property side, this changed a lot of things from our point of view on timelines we have to meet as far as, when you have to make prompt payment on claims, your claim records, how long you keep them, claim filing deadlines, when you have to do those certain things by for policyholders, and then denied claims and litigation. There's new timelines on those as well. And this is for all, insurance claims, just specifically in the state of Florida. The Senate Bill 2A is really the big point here that we want to focus on. So when we talk about the prompt payment of claims, this is effective as of March 1st of this year. So what's that, a couple months ago? 3 months ago. So from now on, these timelines have changed from what they used to be. So an insurer must acknowledge a claim now within 7 days, or at least respond to communication. And there are, some fines and some penalties for carriers if they don't meet these timelines as well.
So that's just acknowledging I received the claim.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. The claim's being filed. We have 7 days. And I
So-
would say 99.99% of the time this is met.
Yes.
But now there's something in place to make sure that it's met. So,
And let me ask you this. So when claim acknowledgement, as soon as this goes to the carrier, we receive the assignment, we acknowledge we got it, boom, that's it.
yeah.
Is that right? Or is this
exactly.
acknowledging to the policyholder we got it?
No, this acknowledging to the policyholder that we got
Okay.
it. So we have to let them know
Okay.
either via an email or a phone call or, marking a customer
Gotcha.
contacted, like an exact analysis or something, that we have actually acknowledged the claim and that we have recognized that we've gotten it and we are beginning to work on it. We also have to begin the investigation within 7 days after the proof of loss statement is received. So that's another new one that's come through. And then really the couple big ones here that I know affects us every day on a daily basis from the inside point of view is we have to conduct a physical inspection within 30 days. Now that includes hurricane claims. So there wasn't always that strict of a timeline. I would say in your daily claims environment, it's not typically something you run into. And there's always this, the language in there that if it's outside of your control, if you've got a third party or a PA or an attorney that's delaying it, or an insured that's not able to meet with you, that's okay as long as it's documented. But in regular circumstances, we got 30 days to actually physically inspect it.
So basically what that's telling me is the state of Florida recognizes that adjusters take too many claims and don't actually handle the ones they have efficiently and rapidly.
Yes. Yes.
And it's like, and we always have that discussion. People go, I want 40 claims or I won't go there. I want 50 claims or I won't do this. And I'm like, well, wouldn't you rather have 10 and close them and then get 10 more and close those and get 10 more and close those and just rapidly process them much easier?
Yeah, exactly. No.
And that's probably what they're saying here, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, it even takes us into the next bullet point here. You have to provide the insured with a copy of the estimate within 7 days after it's created.
And if you have
50 claims,
if you have too many,
there's only 24 hours in a day and you got to
do that.
sleep. So, yeah, I mean, that's another portion of it here. And then really the last bullet point here, the previous timeline on this was 90 days now, but now you have to pay or deny, or at least pay a portion or deny a portion of that claim within 60 days. So you're going from 90 to 60 days. So again, to your point you just said, they're speeding up these timelines. They're making sure that insurers and adjusters are really getting to the finish line faster.
I mean, to me, it makes sense.
Yeah,
it does. On the
does.
property side and also on the flood side, it makes sense. And it goes back to don't take all these assignments. I mean, I've dealt with people before, they just took too many assignments and then they just got overworked.
Yeah.
And then it becomes stressful. Then you got poor customer service. So this is going back and saying, all right, we're going to take care of the customer.
Right.
We're going to require this and this, which makes sure adjusters pay attention to this.
Yeah. And
fines are pretty hefty.
They
I
are.
understand.
Yeah, and what it's really doing, I think, is it's putting insurers' feet to the fire. Where they have really strict guidelines, where they may have already been in place. Now they're just cutting them down. I mean, you take that last one, the 90 to 60 days, that's a third of the time that just got cut off that you have to meet.
Interesting.
Next one here is about claim filing deadlines. So this really goes into, when they can actually report a claim. So effective for all policies issued or renewed after basically the end or around Christmas of this last year. Policyholders now only have 1 year after the date of loss to report a new or a reopened claim. In years past, they could wait 2 or 3 years to open a claim. Now, can't do that. You got 1 year.
Actually, I like that as well.
I do too.
Good.
I do too. And like I said, it gets into the point where, as an adjuster, it's really hard. Where if it's 2.5, 3 years down the road, how are you going to really conduct an inspection?
Correct.
Lord knows what's happened
Correct.
At that property as far as damage. So
Let me ask you this, Murphy. So this 1 year after the date of loss to report a new claim, does that once the 18 months after the date of loss to report a supplemental claim?
Right.
So when we do a supplemental claim, does that immediately trigger this in as well?
correct.
We still have the acknowledgement.
Yes.
We still have this. We still
Yes.
do the physical inspection.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, that's
So
exactly
it's not
right.
just giving us any leeway there. It's
Right.
whatever original, supplemental. Yes, you have these are your requirements.
Yeah. It absolutely is. And like I said, I think it's a good thing. Those timelines they're really put in place to help the policyholder and put the insurance company and the adjuster's feet to the fire, which is, they're both good things and both can be true. So I think that's another good thing here. And then really the last part about SB2A right here is on denied claims and litigation. So based on this new Florida statute 95.11, if coverage is denied, the insured has 5 years from the date of loss to bring forward suit. So 5 years from the actual date of loss. Now, it doesn't matter if it's a full disclaimer, meaning a full denial claim. Say, for instance, they filed a claim for flood damages and they don't have flood insurance. We denied it all on the property side. So it doesn't matter if it's a situation like that, or even maybe it's a partial disclaimer or a partial denial. They still have 5 years from the date of loss. So potentially there could be 2 different statute of limitations on the same claim. Whether you've got a full coverage or a partial denial. So all that kind of goes into play now with SB2A.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So our next subject here for the property side is Hover. I know most everybody has heard of Hover. If you haven't, it's really a technology and a program that can help us, really depict more accurate 3-dimensional sketches of exteriors of homes. And really you can do it through your smartphone.
Can you vacuum your house with it?
You can't.
Okay.
You can't. But I will see if
That's Hoover.
That's
Hoover.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Hoover.
I have to be careful using the 1 O instead of the 2. So
Gotcha.
But yeah, so this product can, it'll actually help, pre-inspection and also when you get out there too. I think it's an area where carriers want to move more towards using your Hovers and your Eagle Views because we always talk about it's making it more accurate, makes the process more efficient. And I think it's a program that's really being put into play more and more often now. Look, from their website, they have over 1.1 million downloads. So I imagine that's going to go up.
I would think so as well.
Right.
I'm thinking so as well, based on the SB2A.
Right.
Based on those
Right.
requirements.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Now you're finding just
It's a
like
good
we talked
callback.
about on the narratives, and the things we require on a flood, and looking at ways to improve yourself,
Right.
what to do. This will fall within the same thing. You got this new
Yeah.
law coming down.
Exactly.
Okay, how can you improve your current processes
Right.
to be more efficient
Right.
and get these claims closed?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think programs like this, like Hover, really cut down on the inspection time too. If you get out there, instead of getting up on a ladder trying to measure siding and this and that, you've got this based on some photos you can take,
Yeah.
which you've already got a camera or a smartphone on you at all times. This allows you to really kind of axe that portion out from the get-go, and you can do it. You can even have the insured send you pictures and use those for Hover. So you can do a lot of it pre-inspection as well.
Okay. Well, another thing that you mentioned, if you have trouble accessing the roof, you can reach out to a company like Knight Solutions.
That's exactly
The
right.
roofing companies
Yeah.
and get them involved in it as well.
Yes, you can.
And have them assistance or something like this.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking
Well,
something, but I'll ask that another question.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and one new thing about Hover, calling back to the this title, what's new and how does it concern you? Hover is venturing more into the interior sketches and interior measurements now. There's some programs out there that we've used in the past, but with Hover, it's all great if you can get it all from one source. So, this is something that we're really starting to use. And the next part we had here about Hover, we just discussed it. So. I don't know that we necessarily have to show this slide, but basically it's just saying it's a smarter way to do business.
Gotcha. Okay.
For insurance companies and adjusters.
Yeah.
Next program I really wanted to touch on from the property side, like I said, we use it a lot for carriers. Right now there may only be a portion of it's used, and some adjusters may use this in your daily workflow, but Claim Experience, which is another one of those Exactware products.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows Xactimate, where you write the estimate. Everybody knows about Exact Analysis, but Claim Experience is kind of almost like the new kid on the block, right? And it's starting to get used and implemented more and more when it comes to personal property and, really involving and engaging the policyholder in those tasks, getting them involved in the process. I think it creates a better customer experience for them. It creates a more smooth workflow when you can involve them. They feel like they're valued in this process. And some policyholders may be against it. We've ran into that. They say, this is your job. This is not my responsibility. But I think a lot of policyholders want to be involved because it helps them feel like, they're 1A on the list. This is what they all should feel.
Yeah. And, and those that have that approach, I don't want to be involved in this. It's really, I think it's more the sales to it. The sales
I think so,
approach
too.
to it. It's the explanation from the adjuster why using this is extremely valuable for them.
Right.
Because here's another tool that's going to speed up that process.
Right.
If it's used properly and you dig into how far it needs to be, what the capabilities are. Mm-hmm. With the flood side, where we've been using this a little bit as well, we're not using it on the flood side to the capabilities it can be used. And we had that same problem. Policyholders go immediately, oh, no, I don't want to touch this.
Yeah.
But once they get to it, once they get into it, it's like,
they enjoy it.
I wish I'd have tried this earlier.
Exactly.
Like,
well, and the good thing, too, is, everything's got an app these days, right? So, in today's kind of ever-evolving age of technology, you've got younger and younger folks, and even your older generation of folks. Everybody's got a smartphone. Everybody has apps for, tip calculators,
right
measurements, levels. Yeah. I mean, and Claim Experience is another one of those that can be used, really, like I said, to gather personal property. You invite them through a text app.
I'm sorry, I'm actually texting right now. So.
There you go. There you go. We actually have we have a class on CNC Pro that really goes into depth on Claim Experience. So, and then really the next portion here on Claim Experience as well is the video collaboration, which is on the next slide. Craig, there you go. No, the next slide here when it talks about video collaboration. Again, it's all based through a smartphone, and that video collaboration can be really a tricky subject to navigate when you bring it up to a policyholder, because the first thing they say is, I don't want you looking through my phone, and what are you going to be, but like you said, it's all about how you sell it. It's all about how you bring up that conversation. So,
okay.
Yeah, but the video collaboration will allow you to take pictures with their phone and allows you to do some measurements, tape measure, things along those lines. So that's really the two programs I wanted to touch on from the property side.
What else you got?
Next thing really is something that you talked about from the flood side is your narratives. And on the property side, we call it GLRs, general loss reports, but it's, same, tomato. But so general loss reports, I think, is probably one of the biggest reasons a file will get kicked back, either by an examiner or by a carrier. Because when you think about it, it's the written version of the inspection, right? You got photos that can show you, but you have photo descriptions, which is a quick blurb. You got an estimate that gives you line items, but the narrative is really where you tell the story.
Yeah.
I think on your narrative report, you really have to make sure that not only is the stuff like, at the top, your admin information, your claim numbers, your policy numbers, addresses, all that's right. But then when you get more into the coverages and the amount of coverages, and even as you skip through here, when you start talking about your policy overviews, your endorsements, exclusions, all that has to be documented. And that's a word you kept bringing up is documentation. The more you can put in your general loss report, the better off that claim is going to be. As you keep going as well, when you start going into the damages section, and this is an example of one that you see here in the screenshot for one we use for, a number of our property carriers that we currently do work for. But, they want you to go into extreme detail based on coverages, not just an overview, house, fence, detached garage, and TV. They want you to go into depth in each section and really give a good blurb about what's damaged, what's not, what is covered, what's not, what endorsements allow for that, and exclusions are going to, axe out coverage for it. And, that's about what I have on the general loss report. Down at the very end right here, when you talk about coverage alerts, this is kind of a bugaboo for carriers as well. They want to see these coverage alerts and see, is there wear and tear present? Is there pre-existing damages or ordinance and law issues that have come up? So these coverage alerts are also super important too, that we make sure that we fill them out and get them accurately done.
And how is this new again?
So I would say this is new in the fact that the coverage alerts are becoming more and more of an issue for certain carriers. When we have to do a lot of work in their claims management system and their database, these trigger underwriting reports, really. So when that policy comes up for renewal, they have these coverage alerts in there, and it makes it important for them too.
So it's again, like we talked about, in the details of more explanation.
Yes.
There's reasons why clients want more explanation of things, not just, we want to make it more hard, make it just give you more tasks to do, and here's just more burden. there's always a reason why.
Right.
And that's why I think these seem so old and okay, I've done this forever, but no, we do have things that are new. There's new requirements and there's things in place because of that.
Yeah, and I would say, like I said, probably 80% of our carrier returns for this last year, general loss and narratives. That's what I would say, based on the documentation and the accuracy of it.
And the thing is, if you just improve that little piece right there, that reduces the amount of time as an adjuster spends on that file.
Yep.
That gives the payment faster to the policyholder, which could result in escalated calls. The longer that file stays open, the higher the chance that escalation happens, the higher the problems occur, the more issues could happen. So just one little thing, one little extra step that you can go, okay, let me do this to explain this or do this that as I'm supposed to be doing with my day-to-day activities of this file, reduces all this other extra time. And a lot of adjusters, shouldn't say a lot of adjusters, I mean, it's from my perspective that some people just try to get by when just getting by actually causes a longer tail on that file.
Causes more headaches, for sure.
More headaches.
It really does.
Everything.
Yep.
You detailed enough, you explain enough, you spend that extra time. I'm telling you, if you spend 3 or 4 extra minutes at the front end, it's going to save you hours on the back end.
I would agree.
It's just like, okay, it's just a simple process.
Yep.
Which, kind of to wrap it up here, this kind of leads us to customer experience. Something that I want to talk about on customer experience. First of all, the slide's blank. You're probably thinking, okay, where's my next slide? I'm going to see some graphics. I'm going to see something cool happen up here. No, I just wanted to throw this word out there. This phrase, customer experience. The things we're talking about today are all part of the development and learning and becoming a better adjuster. It's all part of that customer experience. That's ultimately what we're doing here. We're a customer service company when it comes down to it. We estimate, we do things like that. A good company that I always kind of relate to when I talk about customer service is Chick-fil-A. Okay, and you're thinking Chick-fil-A actually sells chicken sandwiches. Yeah, but I'm going to be honest with you, their chicken sandwiches are just okay. They're not very good. Oh, Murphy's getting upset over here. I can hear his tummy growling.
I'll start with me.
Their chicken sandwiches are really just okay. I mean, when you think about it, what drives people to Chick-fil-A is their customer service. It's the customer experience. It is getting in and getting out rapidly. I mean, we're all crushed for time. We all have things we are trying to do and trying to get in our day. When I'm sitting here at the office working on some projects and stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm hungry. What am I going to eat? The first thing that I think of is like, oh, I'm going to go eat there. I'm like, nah, it's going to take too long. No, that's going to wait too long. No, I guess I'm going to go to Chick-fil-A again. And I'll go get one of their chicken sandwiches and then just scarf it down. But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I'm telling you, Popeyes has a much better chicken sandwich. But the problem is they take too long. So I don't go to Popeyes. I go to Chick-fil-A. And of course, I probably don't need to be eating anyway.
They don't say my pleasure though.
They don't.
That goes a long way.
And I'm telling you, I was at Chick-fil-A one day and I waited like 5 minutes. That was it. And they brought me a gift card and said, we apologize.
Same.
We took too long. Here's a gift card. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, I was not here very long. But anyway. But what point I'm getting at is the thing with Chick-fil-A, it's the customer experience. They're the number one effective experience in the food market, in the fast food market. They're always adapting. They're always improving. They're always looking for changes. They're always aware of what's happening. They're always trying to figure out the next thing to move the process easier. That's what we're talking about here with these classes and doing this stuff. We're working to the same thing. We're trying to work to the same thing. Because think about yourself as a customer, as a policy holder, okay? You just experienced a devastating loss, okay? You know nothing about your policy. I guarantee if I was in a class right now and asked everybody, raise your hand, who knows information on their policy, probably every single one of you would be like, nope, because you don't know the policy. You don't know the language. You don't know what's covered. You don't know what's not covered. You don't know how to interpret things. You don't know your duties, your agreements, all this other stuff that goes into this process. So think about this from the customer experience. How would you want to be treated? Okay? You are the expert, not the policy holder. So the more knowledge you get, the more information you attain, the more work experience that you put yourself through, even when you're not doing claims, the more stuff that you can do, the more things that figure out how to take advantage of some of this new stuff that we're talking about and implement it into your day-to-day activity. And how can you be more efficient in your day-to-day activity? Just like the GLRs, okay? The things that you have to do there, okay? And then you look at it and say, well, how can I have more tasks I have to do, but how can I make this more efficient for me so when I'm actually out in the field, it's not a burden? And also, I know these tasks I need to do. Let me put them in my processes now, not when I get a claim, not when you see this hurricane sitting out in the Gulf going, all right, here we go. They go, oh, let me get my stuff together now. No, it is a process. It is a year-round process. I've mentioned this multiple times, and I know baseball expert here can talk about this as well. A professional baseball player in the major leagues, who's probably the top player in the industry, is not taking their summers off and going around golfing and drinking and fishing and doing stuff. They are out there on a tee learning the fundamentals again.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's exactly right. And they play during the summer, but I know what you mean. In the off season.
Well, we should be playing during the summer too. We
That's
should
right.
be playing mock claims. I don't know.
That's right.
But what I'm saying is, you get in a situation, the customer, it's stressful, it's frustrating, it's demanding, it's devastating for this policyholder. They may not have power, they may not have transportation, they may not have gas, internet, cell service, whatever it is in a catastrophe situation. They're looking toward my professional adjuster.
Yeah.
This is the first person that I have seen since I had the policy. I've had the policy for 10 years. This is the first time I had to use the policy. And they're looking to you
As the expert.
And I guarantee you, they're getting overwhelmed by this whole process. They probably have contractors calling them. They have agents calling. They have people knocking their door.
Mitigation.
They have FEMA,
yeah.
mitigation. People are PAs. People are pressuring them. And the whole time they're going, I need help.
Yeah.
I need help. They're looking to you. They're not just looking to you to call you and just have a conversation. They need guidance. So it goes back to our customer experience. It goes back to, look at this from Chick-fil-A, Look at this from Chick-fil-A. They're rapidly changing. They're improving their processes. They're out there working to make that whole situation better. As adjusters, we need to do the same thing, okay? Think about, you are the caring, professional, transparent, patient flood adjuster, property adjuster. You're out there to give the direction and the guidance. You have to communicate with the policyholder through the whole process, not just when you feel like it, when they call you. Because if not, a PA is going to get to them, somebody else is going to get to them, something's going to happen, and the whole process will just go south, okay? You got to explain the coverages, the non-coverages. You got to explain the policy. You got to be able to rapidly provide them with a chicken sandwich.
I would agree.
I'm sorry, you got to rapidly provide them with a good quality file.
I want the chicken sandwich.
But think about the Chick-fil-A way, how they do it and how they're proven. That's what we're here for. With that, this was some new stuff that we have, but we also have other podcasts that we do.
Yep.
Go back to our YouTube channel.
Gosh.
YouTube channel.
Season 5,
he'll
have it down pat.
All that information. No, probably not. Watch the information we have out there. It's there. We have face-to-face training coming up. We have webinars coming up. We have updates to our CNC Pro. If you haven't had access to CNC Pro, call our HR department, get access to that, because we have training on there. We have Train Pass. We have stuff. We have hosting a lot of Xactimate classes.
Yes.
We got level 1, level 2. We got some Xactimate mobile classes coming up. We got some claim experience classes coming up. We got some estimated writing. We have our new Xactimate certified trainer David James, who's going to be doing some of these classes as well. We got Murphy's going to be doing classes. We got Julie's doing some classes. I'm going to be doing some classes. We just got a lot of stuff we got going on. We're also going to have some storm preparation classes where we'll have some workshops here at our office and at our corporate office here in Mobile, Alabama, where you can come on. We'll have it set up where we'll have some classes going on that you can bring your computers. We can help set up your profiles. We can make sure your licenses are right. We can help you stuff. We can show you the new processes, the shared folders, the new handling of files, all kinds of cool stuff. I mean, just really, we're here to help you prepare for what potentially is going to be happening down the street here that we see coming up. So
That's right. That's right.
What you got, Murphy?
I would say this is all good stuff, and there's always new stuff that comes out every month, every week in the claims industry, and this is really what we wanted to do to kind of wrap up this season, is to go over some new things that we've gotten through the first 6 months of this year, first half of this year. There will be new things that come out after this. This is not the end of the learning curve. There's always new things that come out, and with new storms comes new information, and that could be in 13 days. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll end it with this. You never stop learning.
We do have some questions.
Oh, we got questions.
We do have some questions.
Okay. I
a
thought
lot of you guys,
this was not a
there's
question
a
and answer
voice
session
just coming
today.
through your speakers right now, but my name is Jeremiah Long. I'm the video producer behind the scenes, but we do have some questions, so I'll list the first one. First one is the new prelim app now on the ClaimSource iPad?
The current ClaimSource iPad that you have, the version, it is not. The new 2.0 prelim app is in development. It is actually ready for release. We are doing I think we're doing about 2 or 3 more tests on it. It could have been released a week ago, 2 weeks ago. We're doing 3 more tests on it. It is very stable. It's very fluid. It's pretty dang awesome what they've done with it. I will say that. You can run through it pretty rapidly, which is great. And it does, for those who had tested before, had some questions on it before, it's the form that you can click, but you can also go in and do some other side stuff with it.
Right.
And then it has a lot of new features that have added to it. Some, like one of our companies, we can do our advance payment directly through that goes straight to them. There's a lot of cool features on it. I would say, what is our date today? I would say look for it to be released within 14 days.
Awesome.
The day after that storm hits.
Right.
No, just joking.
All right, next couple of questions. This is regarding Hover. The first part is who pays for Hover. Then the second part is they were asking about interior sketches. Are they ESX? How much do they charge?
Both good questions. So first one we'll go over is the who pays for it. So a lot of times it's a pass-through charge for the carrier, meaning you sign up through it with the carrier's, what they call it's a wallet. So you do it through the carrier's wallet, so the invoice goes directly to them. In the case where there's not a pass-through cost or a wallet that's been associated with a Hover account for a carrier, what will happen is the adjuster pays for it up front, then they get reimbursed for it on their invoice. Once the firm or the IA firm or CNC gets paid for it, then you get reimbursed. So it can be, a bit of a cost up front, but I'm telling you, it makes it it's so worth it just to make your process more efficient and make sure you're obviously more accurate. So, and then the second part was about interior sketches. Same thing. That's something that they want to venture into and something that they really have started venturing into. It comes through in that ESX file, though, so you could directly import it into your own Xactimate, so the sketch will already exist for you. So both really good questions there.
Awesome. Then the last one that we have is what is the easiest way to transition from auto to property?
That's a very good question. I actually not just did it, but that's what I did. I started out in auto and then transitioned to property. Did a little bit in flood, but really came over to property. I would say the biggest thing is the learning curve is different from auto to property. The biggest thing you can do is get involved in classes. On CNC Pro, and I am plugging it here a little bit, there's so many free classes that you can attend that will really get you over that initial hump. Now, sure, there are classes that you may have to pay for, whether it's a carrier certification, right? Things that you have to do in order to get deployed for
Some
a property
of those,
carrier.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a few, but not very, very many.
Right.
Xactimate, but yes.
What would you give the percentage on the amount of free property courses?
99%.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. There's YouTube for everything. There's always a learning curve when you're moving or transitioning from one line of work to another. The good thing is it sounds like you've already got the insurance basis, so you kind of know what different verbiage and terminology is. But from the auto to the property side, I would just say get involved in the classes. That's what I did. It takes you a long way.
And get with our RDO department.
Yes.
And obtain some, start working on getting your state license. Tell them, hey, where's the first state should I go about getting my state license? And they'll give you that guidance on where to go, and then start working on getting your state license.
Florida,
Texas,
North Carolina,
Alabama.
Oklahoma.
I was going to say California. No, New York.
I'm thinking about those, Midwestern, like hail states,
Yeah,
too.
New York's a good one.
New York is a very good one.
New York's like the golden ticket to some people. All right. Any more questions?
That is it.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
So this concludes our final episode of the season.
Yes.
We will be back next year. We will be back with probably more excitement here. Hopefully, we'll have a bigger broadcast booth too. I'm trying to get us, a bigger booth because I want to actually have more guest speakers actually come in, sit down with us here, and just go through all this information that we want to get out to you all. Again, look at our YouTube channel for information. But with that, look for us again. Like I said, 2024, we'll have a schedule coming out next couple of months. Have the same number of seasons. Excited about that. Before we go, though, I want to thank several people. First, I want to thank the marketing, the media team that's involved in this. Senneth, Chris, Amy, Ashley, and, of course, all the background stuff that you would not see happening, which I wish we could turn the camera on to him so he could see himself, Jeremiah, because he's done a lot. And I know has a lot of people helping him move all this stuff around, but he's done a lot for just what you're seeing here. Without seeing here, this would not be happening. And Amy's been involved, and Ashley's been involved in the questions and answers, and I think even when I'm hosted at one time, if I'm not mistaken. I think we're all out, and we're like, we need a host. And she's like, I'll do it. I think, was it Ashley?
I think so.
Yeah,
think
she
so,
just
too.
did.
Ashley subbed in with
with
David.
They're all
they
great in
killed it,
marketing.
so-
Or it was Ashley and Chris. Yeah, they did awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
So just really thank the marketing. Someone's calling me. Team for really pushing this and helping us actually produce this information, get to y'all. Then I also want to thank Murphy. Been a great co-host or host. I really host because I'm just kind of getting myself out of this. Host. Really brought some great stuff to the table. David as well brought some great information to the table. So and I know they collaborate well. And then lastly, probably one of the more important people to identify, besides myself, is actually Julie. Because without what she's done in the background, a lot of these guest speakers we wouldn't have had. She's out there getting them. She's out there coordinating with them. She's out there, doing these mock-up things and getting everybody together and make sure everything runs smoothly and then getting with Jeremiah. And it's just been a whole big, massive production. So she's been a big instrument in actually getting these people here and in front of y'all and presenting this information. So with that,
I would like to add one person as well. Mandy.
Oh, yeah,
from the
Mandy.
CNC Pro side.
Because, the CNC Pro side. Why didn't I think of so Mandy, the same thing. All the information she's doing the CNC Pro side, the registrations, the logins, the traffic. I mean, making sure everybody's doing that, being able to broadcast this information out. That whole project on the CNC Pro side, just doing that is just, there's a lot of involvement in that that goes into that. So,
There is.
Am I missing anybody else then?
The best thing you can do is say for everybody I forgot to mention.
And for everybody I forgot to mention,
There you go.
thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, adjusters. Thank you,
Thank you.
clients and people that are coming to our podcast. We look forward to seeing y'all again
Next
year.
season.
Next season, too.
Yeah.
Next year. Have a great summer, and keep training, keep learning. Thank you, everybody.
See you, everybody.